The following clip you're about to watch comes from a creator named Reese Royales, whose family rented a cabin for a getaway, only to find out it was heavily haunted. Reese actually noticed the activity first when a kitchen cabinet opened completely on its own. Understandably freaked out, he went to tell the rest of the family, and they all rushed downstairs to see it for themselves. You can feel the nervous tension in the room as they crowd into the dimly lit kitchen, cameras rolling, waiting to see if the anomaly will repeat itself.
Sir? Ayoko! Which one is open?
Open! Stay away!
Okay, everything. Oh, let me say.
Where's Marcus?
Right here? Right here.
No.
Right now.
Where's Marcus?
See how hard to open that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will push myself. Go.
Right.
Right, I see that.
Right.
Get out of the way. Get out of the way. Get out of the way.
Sinong gumagawa nito? Open it right now.
Asan kayo? Dito kayo?
Nangyayari, dude.
Marami tayo na eh.
Kanina may nag-open.
Is it loose? No. Open!
Wala bang ilaw dyan? Bakit pa?
No! Stop!
No, I saw that.
No. It was fucking shaking. It was fucking shaking.
Can we go? What?
Open it.
Oh my god.
Go
What?
And as you can see from their terrified reactions, it definitely happens again. The cabinet violently swings open, sending the entire family screaming and scrambling out of the room. So, what exactly might be at play here? In paranormal theory, an entity capable of physically moving heavy objects right in front of a large, active group of people is displaying a massive amount of kinetic energy, often the hallmark of a poltergeist. Poltergeists act like energetic sponges, feeding off high emotion environments. The combined fear, anticipation, and chaotic energy of the whole family rushing downstairs likely gave the entity the exact charge it needed to manifest so aggressively. Now, while the family's panic feels incredibly authentic, several skeptical viewers in the comments were quick to point out the logistics of the room, with one simply asking, "Who was under the cabinet, haha?" Given the camera angle and the dark island counter obscuring the lower half of the frame, it's entirely possible someone was tucked out of sight to push the door open for a viral prank. But whether it's a masterful family setup or a highly charged poltergeist asserting its presence, the sheer panic captured on tape is undeniably effective. What do you think? Was that the work of a poltergeist or just a clever trick? I'll leave you to be the judge. This next clip starts off wholesome enough. A father is just hanging out in a bedroom, filming his young daughter as they play a simple game of catch. The focus is entirely on her having fun, but if you look past the bed to the window in the background, you'll catch a detail that completely ruins the vibe. If you watch the center of the blinds, right behind the little girl, a few of the slats clearly pull apart and dip down. It looks exactly as if someone is standing on the other side, pulling the blinds apart to peek inside the room before suddenly letting them snap back into place. He didn't even notice it until he watched the clip back.
Okay. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. That one hurt. Okay, you want me to make buckets now?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
I'm gonna catch it.
Oh, you want to catch it and then put it?
Okay.
Okay. Oh. Yeah. Yay! Yeah! You want the small one?
Yeah.
There you go. Oh.
This is too small.
Sorry. It's too small.
Yeah.
Oh, you got it. No, almost. I mean, you hit SpongeBob though. Yay! Last one. 3, 1.
No, you should say 3.
Huh? 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1.
You should say 3, 2, 1, go.
3, 2, 1, go. In the basket.
Go again.
Okay.
When he posted the footage, he explained in his caption that the window was completely shut and he didn't see any physical fingers poking through to manipulate the blinds. Understandably freaked out, he asked his viewers if it could be a ghost. He even mentioned that the grandmother came in to bless the room shortly after they noticed the anomaly, but he admitted he's still feeling pretty uneasy about the whole situation. In paranormal theory, this kind of subtle, voyeuristic activity is incredibly unsettling. Entities will often start their manifestations by simply observing, figuring out the dynamics of the household before making a larger move. The fact that it's focusing its attention right behind a child makes the whole thing feel undeniably predatory. In the second part of this saga, the dad realizes just how crazy the situation actually is. He goes back into the room to investigate and films the setup to prove to everyone that absolutely nobody else was inside with them. He shows the empty room, pointing out exactly where his daughter was sitting on the bed. But then he takes things a step further to debunk any skeptics who might think a prankster was just standing right outside the window.
Right here is the room where it actually happened. Hey. So I was just sitting here with my daughter. Well, she was actually on the bed playing with her toy that she always plays with. All of a sudden, I didn't understand what was going on, because the only way you can move the blinds is if you're inside the room. There's no possible way that someone can move the blinds from the outside of the room. There's no possible way somebody can just come up here and move the blinds from the inside.
He takes his camera outside to film the exterior of the house, and that's when you realize the bedroom window is actually on the second floor. The only way someone is opening those blinds from the outside is if they are over 9 feet tall. It's physically impossible for a normal person to reach that window from the ground, and we already know there was no one else hiding inside the room to do it from the inside. This completely rules out a simple neighborhood prank and firmly pushes this into paranormal territory. But if you think a creepy, peeping ghost is bad, just wait. The next day, he went back to review security footage to see if his cameras caught the detail his own eyes missed in the moment.
Okay, so I might just be rambling, but I just want to bring up security footage, POV from when it happened. I'm just gonna zoom in and you just tell me what you see.
Oh, you got it.
There are no fucking fingers. There are no fingers in the middle of this. Nobody's moving the blinds.
No. Are you sure? Yeah. Okay. That one hurt. Okay, you want me to make buckets now?
The only way someone will be able to open that window is from the left to the right side.
Okay. Oh. Yeah. Yay! Yeah! You want those home?
Yeah.
Even when outside of the house, the only fucking way
Okay.
is from the left to the right. There was no opening in the middle, even on the outside or the inside.
Yeah!
You would need to step on the stepping
Yay!
stones to get on that.
Yeah! You want
So
those
I don't
home?
know.
Yeah.
Go. Oh. Sorry. It's too small. Oh, you got it. No, almost. I mean,
As you can see, the activity doesn't just happen once. The blinds are manipulated twice in a way that feels incredibly rhythmic and deliberate. He even zooms in to show a detail that is frankly a huge red flag. There are absolutely no fingers visible. In a normal prank, you'd see the tips of a hand or at least a shadow blocking the light, but here the slats just separate. Now, here is the logic pivot that really pushes this into paranormal territory. He points out that not only is the bedroom on the second floor, meaning a prankster would need a massive ladder just to reach the glass, but these specific blinds don't even open from the middle. They are a solid unit. For those slats to dip down like that, something has to be applying physical pressure directly to the center of the plastic, a feat that would be impossible for a simple breeze or a shifting foundation. If you thought the voyeuristic behavior with the blinds was unsettling, this next clip proves that the entity is quickly moving out of the observation phase and into something much more aggressive. Same room, same heavy atmosphere, but this time the interaction is a lot more direct. As the homeowner films the bedroom door, it starts to drift open with a slow, agonizing creak that feels entirely too deliberate to be a draft. Just as the door reaches its peak, the lights abruptly cut out, and in the sudden darkness, the door is slammed shut with enough force to make you jump. Of course, skeptics might try to point toward a simple cross breeze or a faulty light switch, but for both events to happen simultaneously is a major red flag. A draft doesn't typically trip a circuit breaker, and an electrical surge doesn't physically pull a door shut. In paranormal research, this is often categorized as a localized energy drain. Entities frequently draw power from electrical systems to fuel physical manifestations. By killing the lights, it's essentially using that surge as a battery to slam the door, making a clear statement that it can control the boundaries of the room. It's moving from being a watcher to a jailer, effectively barricading the homeowner inside his own sanctuary. In this final piece of evidence, we see the real-world consequences of these disturbances on the family. While it's one thing to capture a door slamming or a blind dipping on camera, it's a whole new level of unsettling when a child begins to sense the shift in the house's energy. The dad captured this moment when his young daughter became visibly distressed, repeatedly saying, "Dad, this is so scary." She's clearly hesitant to even step foot in the room where the activity has been most concentrated, essentially treating the doorway like a physical barrier.
So scary. This is so scary. I think it's so scary.
Children are often considered intuitive barometers for a haunting. They are incredibly receptive to shifts in the atmosphere and can often sense an entity's presence long before it manifests physically for an adult. Her refusal to enter the room suggests that the entity has successfully established a territorial hold over the space, making it feel unwelcoming or even predatory to the most vulnerable member of the household. Is this just a child feeding off the nervous energy of her father, or has the room itself become a site of active, intelligent aggression that even she can feel? I'll let you come up with your own conclusions. This next clip takes us to an abandoned school in Iraq, where a group of friends decided to do a little urban exploring. They're wandering through the gutted, desolate hallways, documenting the decay, and at the time, they didn't feel anything out of the ordinary. In fact, they didn't even realize they had captured anything strange until they watched the footage back.
ما كانت موجودة. تعال برا. والله طفت الماء شيء والله بتشعل فوق الحمد لله على الباب لا يبقى تعال مش خنبطي تليفون انطفى
As the cameraman steps into a large, empty classroom and pans to the right, a dark figure suddenly sprints across the background. It doesn't just drift like a typical apparition, it moves with a heavy, deliberate stride. But when the footage is slowed down, you catch the detail that completely ruins the vibe. The figure appears to be entirely headless. Skeptics will immediately point to motion blur or a digital artifact, arguing that a friend simply ran past the lens too fast for the cheap camera sensor to process their upper half. But the group was adamant that all of them were accounted for, and absolutely no one was playing a prank in that room. Beyond that, if you watch the entity's movement, it doesn't run like a teenager messing around. It has a stiff, almost unnatural gait that doesn't match the chaotic running of the explorers. In paranormal theory, large abandoned institutions like this often act as residual sinks, trapping the intense or traumatic energy of the past and replaying it on a loop. Is this just a perfect storm of a cheap camera glitch and a fast-moving shadow, or did they accidentally document a physical remnant of the school's darker history? I'll let you come up with your own conclusions. This next clip takes us into the home of a creator who has been documenting a slow descent into paranormal activity. She's been noticing strange disturbances for weeks, unexplained noises and things shifting, but it all reached a breaking point with this child's doll. In the footage, you can see the doll thrashing around on the floor with an almost violent level of energy, vibrating with a force that feels completely out of place for a nursery. It's easy to see this and say it is just a mechanical toy that was left on, but the owner anticipates that move. She picks up the doll and unzips the back to reveal the internal compartment, and as you can see, it is completely empty. There are no batteries, no wires, and zero logical power sources to explain that level of physical movement. In paranormal theory, objects like dolls are often referred to as vessels because they provide a physical structure that is relatively easy for an entity to manipulate, especially when they want to elicit a high emotional response from the family. This isn't just a glitchy toy, it's an entity using the mechanical frame as a conduit to manifest its presence in the room. So what do you think? Is this just a freak mechanical occurrence? Or has something in that house finally found a way to move on its own? In the following video, we head to Duval County, Florida, where a resident named Eric Battle captures an encounter that feels less like a run-in with local wildlife and more like a scene from a supernatural thriller. Eric had stepped off his porch late at night to check on his chickens after a long day of work. For weeks leading up to this night, he had been plagued by unsettling anomalies, fleeting shadows darting just out of sight, and the unmistakable sound of footsteps crunching on gravel when he knew for a fact he was alone. Initially, he attempted to brush these occurrences off as his mind playing tricks or perhaps a stray animal. But the frequency began to form a pattern that felt less like a coincidence and more like a deliberate, focused escalation. What he captures on this day is an auditory manifestation that defies every logical law of nature. Listen carefully.
Y'all, I just walked off the porch and I came out here to check on the chickens. I just heard, first off, I heard my name. Second off, it sounded like somebody was saying, help me. Hold on. Hey. Help. I need help. Eric, can you help me?
In paranormal research, this specific phenomenon is often referred to as mimicry, a predatory tactic used by certain entities to lure individuals away from the safety of their homes and into the darkness. The atmosphere shifts instantly from curiosity to deep-seated confrontation as Eric ventures further into the brush to find the source. However, on a separate day, the entity demonstrates that its influence on the property has evolved from mere sound to physical manipulation. Take a look.
And so we keep this stuff like this locked. We keep stuff like this locked because, like I said, crackheads. Let's check to make sure it's locked. Door's locked. This is the trailer that I was worried about. You fucking see that, bro? Look, I'm telling you, bro. What the fuck? Okay, we're just gonna peek in. Oh my, what the fuck? There's fucking walking around in this motherfucker, bro. Hello? Guess we're gonna have to climb in this motherfucker. Probably should have brought my gun. Hello? Fuck! Y'all fucking heard that shit. Hold on, man. It's happening all around me right now. Like it's the worst that it's ever been.
The mimicry goes from a voice pleading for help in a tone eerily similar to Eric's own to a true escalation when physical objects begin to move. As he investigates an abandoned trailer on his land, the interior looks like it has been violently ransacked. You can also hear metal bangs against metal and heavy items sliding across the floor, despite the doors being locked from the outside and no visible entry point for a human or a large animal. Some viewers theorize this could be a skinwalker or flesh pedestrian, beings known for replicating human speech and possessing enough kinetic strength to manipulate the physical world at will. So, what do you think? Is a physical intruder toying with Eric Battle, or has a sentient manifestation from the shadows of Duval County decided to claim the property as its own? I'll let you come up with your own conclusions. This next clip comes with a story that starts the way most of these do, with a parent who didn't initially believe their child and a CCTV playback that changed everything. The setting is a standard family bedroom where a couple and their 2 children had settled in for the night, all sharing the same bed. It was intended to be an ordinary, comfortable night, but the footage recorded in the dark reveals an interaction that is difficult to process. Something pulls at the blanket first, creating a distinct tension before the entity targets the young boy's leg. You can see the exact moment the physical contact occurs. The child's body reacts instinctively, his leg bending as if gripped by an invisible hand. His subsequent cry wakes his mother, who, in a state of sleep-induced confusion, assumes she had simply moved the blanket herself. She reassured him it was nothing, and the boy went back to sleep, believing her. It was only when she reviewed the security footage the following morning that she saw what her son already knew. Something had been in that bed with them, and it wasn't a family member. What makes this particular manifestation so unsettling is the deliberate targeting. In a room full of sleeping adults, the presence went specifically for the child. In many paranormal traditions, children are believed to be significantly more vulnerable to physical interaction. Their energy is often described as more accessible and open compared to adults, who have spent years building psychological walls. The mother expressed a desperate hope that the event was isolated, but an entity confident enough to manifest in a crowded bed is rarely easily discouraged. To provide context for the aftermath, the family's reaction moved swiftly from disbelief to spiritual defense. After seeing the footage of their son being physically grabbed, they refused to wait for a second occurrence. They sought immediate intervention, leading to a sobering scene of the family gathering as a priest leads them in prayer to cleanse the home.
Makapangyarihan Diyos, Ama, Anak, Espiritu Santo. So, ano, kagabi lang nangyari yan? Isang araw pa madaling araw. Let's go. May CCTV ba?
There is something deeply human about this shift, from an ordinary night to needing a spiritual authority to feel safe enough to close their eyes. In many cultures, particularly within traditions across Southeast Asia, the response to a haunting isn't an investigation, it's a direct spiritual rebuke. The belief is that certain manifestations can only be addressed and driven out through religious authority. Whether the prayers were successful or the bedroom remained quiet after the priest left, the family hasn't confirmed. However, the fact that they felt the need to perform an exorcism after just one night speaks volumes about the terror captured on that camera. If you caught an unseen force grabbing your child on camera, would you rely on logic to explain it away? Or would you be the first to call for outside help? This next video takes us to Texas, where a woman named Alicia shared a series of distressing events on behalf of her brother. Moving into a new residence is intended to be a fresh start, but for him, the atmosphere quickly became oppressive and volatile. It began with the standard, peculiar sounds of a building settling, but soon evolved into high-energy physical manipulation that suggests a powerful entity has claimed the space. The following footage captures the moment the activity crosses the line from unsettling to dangerous. What we see here is a manifestation of significant kinetic energy. A heavy wooden dresser is shoved across the floor, and more bafflingly, the entire bed is jolted with enough force to slide it away from the wall. If you look closely at the mattress, there appear to be localized indentations, as if an invisible weight is pressing down or stepping across the surface. This suggests that whatever is in the room possesses a physical presence or a unique way to exert mass onto our environment. In paranormal research, this is often categorized as a high-level poltergeist, where an anomaly gathers enough ambient energy to move large, heavy objects. The entity's aggression didn't stop with simple movement. Following that particularly violent night, the room was left in a state of total disarray, with belongings scattered as if a physical intruder had ransacked the place. To provide context for the escalation, the brother recorded himself returning to the room to attempt to clean up the wreckage, though the atmosphere remained heavy and charged. Take a look. There is a school of thought in the paranormal world that suggests confronting such entities with aggression, specifically shouting or cursing, can effectively end a haunting. The theory is that by demonstrating a total lack of fear, you remove the emotional fuel the manifestation needs to interact with the physical world. If the entity is feeding on anxiety, an assertive, angry response might break its cycle of influence. However, given the sheer physical power required to move a bed, others argue that this might only provoke a more violent response from a territorial presence. In cases this intense, many believe that simple household cleansing like sage or holy water may be insufficient, and that a professional investigator or spiritual authority is required to properly address the inexplicable energy. Was this a poltergeist hitting its peak energy, or something more malevolent asserting its ownership over the new tenant? I'll let you come up with your own conclusions. In the next clip, we are introduced to the home of Alexis Lakica, a man whose daily routine recently took a sharp turn into the paranormal. Most hauntings begin with subtle hints, a cold spot here, a faint whisper there, but the activity in this household skipped the formalities and went straight for the psychological jugular. After hearing a persistent rhythmic tapping on his window, Alexis pulls back the curtains only to find his yard entirely desolate. Moments later, his front door handle rattles violently as if something is desperately trying to gain entry, yet the porch remains completely empty. In the world of paranormal research, this is often interpreted as an entity testing the locks, gauging the resident's fear level to see if it has enough energetic fuel to manifest more aggressively. But the most chilling escalation occurred several nights later at exactly 12:55 a.m. when the silence of the house was shattered by a mechanical performance. Alexis was drawn into his living room by the sound of electronic music and disjointed phrases emanating from the darkness. Watch closely.
¿Me escuchan? ¿Qué quieres? Déjame en paz, aquí vivo yo. Sí, si esto siempre lo dejamos apagar. Apagado.
Sitting on a chair was a children's zebra toy performing its preset songs, despite the fact that the power switch was clearly flipped to the off position. This isn't just a simple battery fluke, it's a direct manipulation of the device's internal circuitry. As he tries to process the toy's behavior, a nearby electronic keyboard joins the performance on its own while no one is at the keys. This multi-layered activity suggests an entity that has moved past the testing phase and is now exerting physical control over the environment. Many researchers believe that spirits find modern electronics easier to trigger because they can siphon ambient electrical energy to produce a physical result with minimal effort. It is a calculated move designed to ensure the entity remains the center of attention. Alexis is left standing in a dark room, surrounded by off devices that seem to have developed a sentient mind of their own. If you walked into your living room at midnight to find your off toys throwing a concert, would you try to debunk the wiring, or would you be packing a bag before the second verse? The following video you're about to watch was taken off the security camera of a daycare, and what happens on this day was a visceral display of a child's instinctive fear that has since left the staff questioning the safety of their space. Children are often dismissed for having overactive imaginations, but the reaction of the young boy in this footage suggests he was responding to a very real threat. As he plays alone in the back room, he suddenly bolts toward the main area, his screams indicating a level of terror that goes beyond a simple jump scare. His guardian immediately rushes in to find the source of the disturbance, but the room appears empty. While she's there, the entity makes its presence undeniably known in the area where the kids are playing.
He knocked us over. Who knocked us over? Maybe it was just air. Yeah, what was it done? Good. Well, I could have said,
While the adult is searching for an intruder, a heavy plastic playhouse is violently flipped over by an unseen force. This requires significant kinetic mass, far beyond what a simple draft or unbalanced toy could achieve. But the most unsettling detail is what many viewers, and eventually the staff, spotted upon reviewing the playback. If you look closely at the white door frame just as the boy flees, you can see dark, finger-like appendages briefly gripping the top of the trim. It appears as though something was literally hanging over the doorway, watching the child escape. It's a chilling reminder that sometimes the things children fear aren't just in their heads, they are actually waiting in the shadows. Seeking an explanation for this aggressive outburst, the Guardian returned to the now abandoned room to investigate a potential catalyst for the activity. Hoping to understand why the little boy was so terrified to even glance at the door, she highlights a specific piece of furniture that many paranormal researchers often warn against as a high-risk object. In the corner of the room sits a child-sized vanity with mirrors positioned in such a way that they directly face one another.
I wanted to quickly show you exactly what it was that was scaring the little kid that my mom was watching. So pretty much, so firstly we have the house, and obviously you guys saw that it fell, but the other thing I wanted to point out was that it's pretty hefty, so it really doesn't make any sense that it would just fall on its own like that. So that's just something I wanted to point out. And this is the room. The crazy thing about this is that there was like markings at the top of the entranceway of like the doorway, and I guess in the video you can see hands gripping onto the doorway. I don't really know what to make of that. I thought at first that it was like bugs or something like that, but it looked almost like two hands like gripping on the top, like leading into this room, just like. But the main thing, and the reason that the little boy was screaming, is actually in here. We have this covered up for a reason. Apparently, the little boy told my mom that he saw a face in these mirrors. We already found someone who's going to take it off our hands and pick it up off Facebook Marketplace, but we have been keeping this room off limits.
The boy claimed to have seen a face manifesting within the glass, a detail that aligns perfectly with long-standing occult folklore regarding infinity mirrors. In many spiritual traditions, placing mirrors in this exact position, where two mirrors are facing themselves, is believed to create a spiritual corridor or a portal, essentially thinning the veil between our world and the next. The infinite reflection is thought to act as a bridge, allowing entities from the periphery to step into our physical reality. Because of this, the Daycare has declared the room off limits, but the physical violence we witnessed with the playhouse suggests that simply keeping the door shut might not be enough to contain what came through. Once a portal is established, the energy tends to anchor itself to the space. It's a sobering look at how a simple decorative choice might have invited an unwanted guest into a place meant for play. Recognizing that the situation was escalating, the staff made the difficult decision to remove the suspected source of the energy from the premises entirely. In an effort to restore peace to the Daycare, they listed the vanity on Facebook Marketplace, being fully transparent with potential buyers about the strange history attached to the piece.
That we're going to keep the room closed off from the kiddos for now so they can play in the rest of the space. We actually are going to go ahead and get rid of the vanity. We put it on Facebook Marketplace. Obviously we told them like, hey, like, we think that this is responsible for some weird haunting stuff. They said they were fine with it, so I don't know. This is closed off for now, so the kids are just gonna stay here and not in there anymore until we get this figured out.
Despite the warnings, An urgent buyer came forward, claiming to be unbothered by the reported hauntings. This decision to offload the object highlights a common dilemma in paranormal cases. Does removing an anchored object truly end the activity, or does the entity remain attached to the location itself? The issue might be with the room's layout, rather than the vanity, as the environmental thinness created by the mirrors might persist even after they are gone. For now, the room remains gated and empty, a silent zone in a building that should be filled with laughter. The daycare staff is hopeful that once the vanity is hauled away, the hand at the top of the door frame and the shifting shadows will go with it. But as any seasoned investigator will tell you, some doors, once opened, are notoriously difficult to close, especially when they have been welcomed by a configuration that invites the unknown. While the staff waited for the buyer to arrive, the daycare remained in a state of high alert. The vanity was still positioned in the back room, serving as a silent, reflecting observer of the growing tension. However, any hopes that the entity would remain passive until the piece was removed were quickly shattered. In the following sequence, the security camera captures an event that defies the mechanical reality of the building. The door leading into the restricted room, which had been firmly latched shut to keep the children out, begins to swing open with a slow, deliberate motion. There are no drafts in the building strong enough to disengage a physical latch, yet the door moves as if pushed by a steady, invisible hand. The fact that the vanity remained in the room during this manifestation suggests a defensive posture from the entity, as if it were asserting its claim over the space before its anchor could be taken away. This kind of interaction is frequently reported in homes where a haunted object is about to be removed. The activity often spikes in intensity, becoming more overt and aggressive. It's as though the presence is no longer content with subtle hints and has moved into a phase of direct physical defiance, making it clear that it won't be ignored. As the tension continued to mount, the staff decided to use a common piece of children's equipment to monitor the room from a distance. One walkie-talkie was left in the back room alongside the vanity, while the other remained with the staff in the main daycare area. It was a simple experiment, but the results were anything but expected. Through the static of the walkie-talkie, a series of rhythmic, deliberate sounds began to emerge. These weren't just the random pops of interference. They sounded remarkably like heavy, measured footsteps, or perhaps a persistent tapping on a wooden surface. The regularity of the noise suggests a sentient source, something pacing the restricted room while the door remained shut. In paranormal investigations, this is a classic manifestation of an entity using communication devices to bridge the gap between the unseen and the audible. Since the other walkie-talkie was directly in the presence of the portal mirrors, it's theorized that the device was acting as a microphone for the activity occurring in that thinned reality. There's a specific irony in using such a brightly colored, cheerful toy to capture something so ominous. It reinforces the idea that this presence has fully integrated itself into the daycare's environment, utilizing whatever objects are at its disposal to signal its existence. The final confirmation of the room's energy came through a physical sweep. The Guardian carried the walkie-talkie through the daycare to determine if the interference was widespread or localized. As she moves between the main hallway and the threshold of the restricted room, the difference in auditory feedback is startling. Outside the room, the device is relatively quiet, but the second she steps into the space containing the vanity, the walkie-talkie erupts into a frantic, rhythmic clicking. It sounds remarkably like a Geiger counter hitting a radioactive hot zone. When she retreats, the noise vanishes. When she enters, it returns with aggressive speed. This localization is the definitive hallmark of an anchored haunting. It confirms that the entity's influence is tethered specifically to that square footage. Some commenters have suggested that the vanity didn't just bring the energy, it acted as the lightning rod that allowed it to strike. The daycare has since moved the furniture and had the space cleansed, hoping that removing the portal would finally break the entity's grip on the building. Whether the daycare is truly quiet now remains to be seen, but the physical evidence captured across these 6 clips tells a story of an uninvited guest that was very much at home. So, what do you think? Is the room finally empty, or did the vanity simply leave behind a permanent hole in the veil? I'll let you come up with your own conclusions. In this next clip, a routine night of monitoring a sleeping child turns into a parent's worst nightmare. Many families use nursery cameras for peace of mind, but for this household, the technology captured a physical interaction that defies a rational explanation. As the child sleeps soundly in their crib, pay close attention to the white charging cord and controller hanging off the edge of the nearby furniture. From the deep shadows beneath the crib, a small, pale, hand-like manifestation reaches out and distinctly grips the cord, pulling it downward with deliberate force. The child instantly stirs, as if sensing a presence in the immediate vicinity. In paranormal research, these partial manifestations are particularly chilling because they suggest an entity that has gathered enough energy to form physical appendages. The shape of the hand appears small, leading some to speculate it could be a child's spirit, but the aggressive nature of the movement has others fearing a more opportunistic presence. It is a stark reminder that even in the supposed safety of a nursery, we may not be as alone as we think. The activity in the home didn't stop with subtle tugs on a wire. The next day, the homeowners decided to take a more proactive approach after a series of unexplained events left them feeling uneasy in their own space. They set up an infrared camera to monitor the main living area while the entire family was out of the house, hoping to catch a glimpse of whatever was causing the disturbances. What they captured instead was an auditory assault that suggests an intelligent and seemingly territorial presence. Amidst the normal background noise of the empty house, the silence is suddenly shattered by a massive, booming bang that sounds as if it's coming from right next to the camera lens. The force of the sound is so intense, it causes a visible distortion in the audio feed. But the most chilling part happens just seconds later. As the echoes of the bang fade, a clear, deliberate, and very human-sounding shh is heard, as if the entity is mocking the recording device, or perhaps hushing the house itself. Later in the same recording, the homeowners also captured the distinct sound of whistling and witnessed clothing hanging on a rack, moving on its own. This combination of physical manipulation and vocal mimicry is a hallmark of a high-energy haunting, where the entity is no longer hiding but actively engaging with the environment. For these residents, the shh was the final straw, a direct sign that whatever is in their home knows they are watching. Is this a spirit asserting its dominance over the home while the owners are away, or is it trying to warn them of something even more malevolent lurking in the walls? This video you're about to watch comes from the home surveillance footage of a co-worker's house. According to the person who shared this, the homeowner has been dealing with a heavy, oppressive presence in this specific area of their house, claiming that they repeatedly see this exact same shadowy figure lurking around late at night. Finally, their security camera triggered and captured what they've been dreading. In paranormal analysis, whenever a hazy, indistinct shape drifts across the screen like that, skeptics immediately jump to a few standard conclusions. They'll argue it's just an out-of-focus bug walking across the camera lens, or perhaps the headlights of a passing car refracting through the glass. But we can definitively rule the car lights out. The co-worker who lives in the house confirmed that at the exact moment this anomaly was recorded, there were absolutely no cars driving by outside and no external lights shining onto the property. If there is no external light source, there can be no reflection, which means this shadow light anomaly wasn't caused by the environment. It was an intelligence generating its own luminous energy to manifest in our reality. What the camera caught wasn't a trick of lighting or a wandering insect. It was the physical visual discharge of the exact recurring entity the homeowner knows is waiting for them in the dark. What do you think about this? This next clip shows an anomaly that has baffled a homeowner for the last 4 years. One night, a strange, erratic light source triggered her camera's motion sensors, so she uploaded the video and it sparked a massive debate. The movement is so distinctly autonomous and fluttery that the creator's friend and dozens of people in the comments are entirely convinced the camera captured a fairy. Naturally, skeptics were quick to jump in with two main scientific explanations. Either it's simply a trick of the light reflecting off the kitchen counter, or it's the camera's infrared lights refracting off a tiny spider web hanging just in front of the lens. Keep those theories in mind as you watch the footage. If you watch the trajectory closely, both of those logical explanations completely fall apart. First, if this were merely a reflection, like a passing car's headlights sliding across the kitchen counter, the light would physically bend, distort, or break the moment it crossed the edge of the countertop. But it doesn't. The light maintains its shape and trajectory perfectly. It doesn't bend with the counter because it isn't on the counter. It is a free-floating, three-dimensional energy source moving through the air directly in front of it. The spiderweb theory is much more plausible. In fact, it's exactly what the homeowner thought when her Ring notifications first started going off like crazy. To solve the problem, she physically went out into the room and scrubbed that entire corner, checking for and clearing out any spider webs within a 5-foot radius. But here is the detail that turns this from a mild curiosity into a terrifying encounter. The footage we just watched was recorded after she cleaned the area. Whatever this anomaly was, it wasn't a web and it wasn't leaving. The persistent, unexplained presence of this energy finally pushed the homeowner to her breaking point. She was so spooked that she grabbed her dog at 3 a.m., abandoned the house, and drove 40 minutes to sleep on her parents' couch. When she finally returned the next day, the anomaly was completely gone and she never saw it again. What do you think that was? I'll let you be the judge. This next clip takes us into an environment universally recognized as a massive focal point for the unexplained, a cemetery. In paranormal research, graveyards are considered active batteries of residual energy that hold a dense concentration of spiritual activity simply due to the emotional weight and history attached to the ground. The footage comes from a creator who makes a regular habit of live streaming his late-night graveyard visits. As he stands in the dark, his face covered by a black balaclava while he interacts with his chat, pay close attention to the background just over his right shoulder.
Graben! Pinche velador está loco. Ese en Hidalgo. Dylan, Adrián, ese en Hidalgo. No.
Right in the middle of his broadcast, the distinct silhouette of what appears to be a full-bodied figure casually walks through the shadows directly behind the tombstones. When someone repeatedly uses a final resting place for entertainment, they inevitably run the risk of disturbing whatever is anchored there. Spirits, much like the living, can eventually reach a breaking point when their peace is constantly interrupted. This manifestation doesn't feel like a random, wandering soul just caught on camera by accident. Given how often he streams there, it feels much more like a subtle, calculated warning. It's a quiet, but deeply unsettling way for the residents of that graveyard to let him know that they are watching, they just want to rest, and they have finally had enough of his cameras. If an entity is willing to step out of the shadows and walk directly behind you while you're live streaming, it might be time to find a new location to film. In this next clip, we explore a concept that's so scary, it sounds straight out of a nightmare. What if you aren't just living with a spirit, but living inside a monster house that is actively hunting you? You see, for weeks, the guy in this video had been dealing with deeply unsettling auditory phenomena, most notably hearing distinct, disembodied laughter in his house when he knew for a fact he was completely home alone. But tonight, the entity decided to stop laughing from the shadows and start physically interacting with the environment. He hears the heavy, rhythmic thud of his kitchen cabinets opening and slamming shut on their own. So, armed with his camera, he goes in to investigate. But what makes this footage so sinister is the undeniable intelligence behind the activity. The entity plays a predatory game of cat and mouse. The moment he steps into the kitchen, the noise dead stops. But the second he turns his camera away, it immediately starts again. Watch what happens when the entity finally decides to drop the act and show itself.
Something opens my cabinet and laughs.
No one's in my cupboard that I'm aware of. Oh my god. Fuck that. I swear one of these cupboards just went. It wasn't the same noise. It usually happens, but one of these. Maybe that. No, that won't go because it's got stuff in front of it. This is bullshit. I swear to God that cupboard is moving. Oh my god. Oh shit. Right, that's it. I'm going. Oh my god.
The sheer, unfiltered panic in his voice as he yells is the sound of a man realizing he is no longer at the top of the food chain in his own home. But the most chilling detail happens just as he turns to flee. The cabinet doesn't just slam shut, it violently swings completely wide open. In paranormal psychology, an entity that plays red light, green light with a victim isn't just haunting a space, it's actively trying to break the occupant down, psychologically, to establish dominance. When that cabinet swings wide open, right as he turns his back to run, it is the entity claiming its territory. This leaves us with one final, scary question. If your own home suddenly turned into a hunting ground and things around the house start playing games with you, what would you do? This next clip was posted by a mum who's convinced that her toddler has just seen a ghost. It is a long-standing theory in the paranormal community that young children possess a heightened awareness, allowing them to see things that adults simply brush past. What starts as a normal, happy moment between a mother and her toddler hanging out on the bed quickly shifts when the child's attention is completely derailed by something invisible in the room. The mother noted in her caption that while her daughter didn't cry before or after the specific footage, and that there have been other times in this house where she was absolutely petrified by whatever she was staring at. Watch her expression change and listen to what she points at.
Why are you scared? Please. Oh. What's wrong?
Hello, Dada.
Where's Dada? Oh.
Dada, okay, oh, what are those? Huh? Others.
No, what is it?
No, what's it?
There's nothing out there.
No, we are there.
What?
No, we are there.
Where?
We are there. Don't know it goes.
A ghost? Did you say it's a ghost?
No, it goes.
Where's a ghost?
No, it goes.
Oh.
It's definitely chilling to watch a child go from laughing to being completely hyperfixated on an empty space. But the most striking part is her vocabulary. She explicitly points into the void and identifies the presence as a ghost. Toddlers don't really have the psychological capacity to fake a complex visual tracking response just for fun. She is actively watching something move across the room. The mum handles it like most parents probably would, assuming it's just her child's active imagination. But from an investigator's perspective, verbally acknowledging and inviting an unverified entity closer is always a risky move, even as a joke. It gives whatever is standing in that room validation. It leaves you wondering, when a child points to an empty corner and tells you someone is there, at what point do you stop laughing and start believing them? This next clip perfectly captures the terrifying progression of a physical haunting. When an entity first starts interacting with our world, it often tests the waters with smaller, easily dismissed movements before escalating to heavier objects. In the first half of the video, we are looking at a seemingly normal bedroom setup. Keep your eyes on the bag resting quietly on top of the bed.
Video lang. Makita tayo.
There is no visible string, no sudden tilt of the mattress, and no logical reason for a stationary bag to suddenly drag itself over the edge. The movement is a clear, downward pull. But whatever is in this house wasn't satisfied with just knocking luggage onto the floor. In the second part of the footage, the kinetic energy shifts, focusing on a seating arrangement. Watch closely because the extreme specificity of what happens next is what makes it so unnerving.
Tingnan nyo guys ha. Nandiyan na siya. Nandiyan na. Nandiyan na siya. Nandiyan na. Nandiyan na. Gumalaw yung bangko.
Notice how the surrounding environment remains completely undisturbed. The table doesn't bump. The stool, right next to it, doesn't wobble. And there is no shifting of the floor. Just a single chair being smoothly and deliberately dragged backward by an unseen hand. When paranormal activity is this targeted, it completely rules out environmental factors like heavy vibrations, earthquakes, or drafts. It proves that the entity has enough focus and density to grip a single, specific piece of furniture and move it with purpose. It isn't just lashing out blindly. It knows exactly what it wants to move, and it wants to make sure the homeowner is watching when it happens. This next footage gives us a rare, real-time look at an investigator actively negotiating with a poltergeist, and it perfectly illustrates how unpredictable and intelligent these entities can be. The video starts right after a violent physical disturbance. That heavy metal stand with the draping beads on the middle shelf had just swung forward on its own, violently striking the glass door of the display cabinet. The investigator immediately opens the right side door, hits record, and begins a direct communication session, challenging whatever is in the room to do it again. At first, the response is weak. We just see a slight, subtle jingling of the draped beads. It's the exact kind of movement a skeptic would immediately debunk as a heavy footstep or the investigator subtly bumping the wooden cabinet. But the investigator knows this, so he doesn't back down. He verbally pushes the entity, asking it to actually swing the object like it did before. What the entity does in response leaves him completely unnerved and physically lightheaded.
Poltergeist. So I'm sitting here gaming, and that object up there swung and literally smacked the glass really hard. Damn reflection, but look, still moving. Let's get you before it stops. Look, still moving. Oh no, it moved. Look, it was sitting there, as you can see from the dust. Oh, so it moved. Alright. Can you make it swing again? Damn, I really need to wipe off in there. Look at all that shit. Can you make it swing again? Try to open that more. Hello? Can you make it move again? Oh, look. It made them all move now. Nice. Can you make it swing like you did before when it hit the glass? It's going out of focus. Alright, now I said swing it, not move it. Jeez Louise. Jeez Louise. And I opened that thing, so probably let the damn thing out. Yo, this thing keeps moving. I'm like nervous and shaking. And I'm lightheaded a little bit. Keeps going out of focus. Surprised them things ain't shaking more, how much it moved. I'm so nervous, man. So lightheaded. I'm gonna regret this, but can you make it move again? Can you make it move again? So lightheaded. Can you slide it the other way? Keeps going out of focus. Yo! Was that a nickel, a dime, a penny? Look, there's my change. That thing went flying. How did it not hit the glass? See, that is some glitch in the Matrix shit. Yo, I gotta rewatch that, cause how to get past that glass and fly behind this stuff. What is that? That's definitely not what flew out. I don't even know where.
The following clip you're about to watch was captured by a family who believe that their house is haunted. And honestly, after seeing this, it's hard to blame them. After weeks of things going bump in the night, they decided to set up an infrared camera to see what was happening in the living room while they were out. They probably expected a door to drift or a shadow to pass by, but what they got instead was a full-on auditory assault. right in the middle of the quiet, empty house, there's this massive, booming bang that hits so hard it actually distorts the audio feed. It's not just a settling floorboard, it's a localized burst of energy. But the real hair on the back of your neck moment happens seconds later. As the echo fades, you can hear a clear, very human sounding shh. It's as if the entity is mocking the camera or telling the house to keep its mouth shut. Some eagle-eyed viewers even pointed out a faint sniffing sound right before the hush. To top it off, they later caught the sound of whistling and saw clothes on a rack moving by themselves. This isn't just a residual haunting, it's an entity that's fully aware it's being watched and seems to be getting a kick out of performing for the lens. The activity didn't remain a silent observer for long. It soon began to respond directly to the family's attempts at communication. In this next sequence, the mother and her children decide to test if the presence in their hallway is capable of following instructions, treating the encounter not with fear, but with a surprising level of curiosity.
Close the door. Can you close the door, please? What the fuck?
Let me ask. Open the door if you need help.
What the?
You do?
Oh my, it opened it wide as shit. Oh my god.
Close the door if you need help.
I swear to God, I put it on.
Oh my, why is it doing? What the, bro, no. Yes, I knew. Yes, I knew, Elgin, please.
Do you see
Elgin,
it?
can you please? It's closed all the way, bro. It's closed all the way.
Open it all the way if you need help.
This place haunted.
Oh my god.
Close the door if you need help.
Close the door.
I'm getting scared. I'm getting scared. Oh my god. I'm gonna cry, bro.
Move it.
Standing in the living room, they ask the entity to open the door if it needs help. Almost instantly, the heavy door at the end of the hall swings wide with a slow, purposeful motion. The interaction becomes even more startling when they ask it to close the door. The door doesn't just drift shut, it is pushed with enough force to fully engage the latch. You can clearly hear the mechanical click as the door locks back into place, a feat that would be impossible for a simple draft or a shifting foundation to accomplish. This level of precision indicates an intelligent entity with the ability to manipulate hardware and respond to verbal cues in real time. The family is left standing in a house where the doors act as a medium for dialogue, confirming that the shh from the previous night was just the beginning of a much more interactive haunting. It seems the entity isn't just living in the house, it's listening to every word they say. As the activity within the house intensified, the family began to suspect that the disturbances were not limited to the interior walls. Driven by the sound of inexplicable noises echoing from the darkness of their property, the father decided to extend his surveillance to the backyard, hoping to identify a natural cause for the unrest. What he discovered was a new, bizarre layer of the anomaly, one that seemed to possess a more organic, yet entirely unnatural form. Listen carefully and watch out for the orbs. In the grainy night vision footage, what appears to be a large, bird-like creature is seen momentarily before the atmosphere is flooded with strange orbs of light. These aren't the typical dust motes or insects often dismissed in paranormal videos. These orbs possess a self-luminous quality and a level of intentionality in their movement that causes the camera's digital tracking system to visibly struggle. It frantically pans and zooms, unable to lock onto the rapidly shifting light sources that appear to be playing a game of hide and seek with the lens. The father noted that these visual anomalies are consistently accompanied by unusual, sharp sounds that seem to originate from the air itself. This expansion of the haunting suggests that whatever is interacting with the family isn't just claiming a room, it's claiming their entire environment. The presence is no longer just the thing in the hallway, it has become a pervasive shadow that covers every square inch of their lives, waiting for the cover of night to manifest its most bizarre and evasive forms. Throughout the documentation of these events, viewers consistently offered the same piece of advice: move. For most, the logical solution to a haunted house is to simply leave it behind and start fresh. Taking this suggestion to heart, the family uprooted their lives and settled into a completely different residence, hoping to find the peace that had been stolen from them in their previous home. However, in this next sequence, the true, terrifying nature of their situation is finally revealed. At exactly 3:00 a.m., in the absolute silence of their brand new home, the familiar sounds of the unknown returned with a vengeance. Despite using software to strip away the white noise, the audio remains sharp, with the sounds of deliberate knocking and heavy objects falling from shelves in the distance. The father, audibly exhausted, addresses his audience with a chilling realization that changes everything. He confirms that this is his new house, yet the activity remains unchanged. This is the definitive moment the narrative shifts from a haunted house to a haunted family. In paranormal terminology, this is a person-centered haunting, where the entity is anchored not to a physical structure or historical site, but to the individuals themselves. Moving 1,000 miles away wouldn't make a difference. The shh and the shadows are traveling with them in the moving truck, making it clear that there is no geographic escape from what has chosen them. In the final and most conclusive piece of evidence, the father decides to confront the presence in their new kitchen, seeking a direct answer to the question that has been haunting them more than the entity itself. Sitting in the middle of a room that should be a sanctuary, he begins a verbal dialogue, asking the entity to manifest a sound on command.
Hello? Can you make a noise? Can you make a loud noise? Is this your old house? Have you been following us? I can hear you. Are you in the kitchen? Can you knock 2 times? only hear one knock. Can you consistently knock 2 times? What is your name?
The response is immediate and chillingly intelligent. Perhaps the most disturbing moment comes when he asks the entity directly if it followed them from their old house. The ensuing series of knocks feels like a sentient confirmation, a dark admission that the change of address was entirely in vain. This interaction removes any lingering hope that the family was simply dealing with a bad house. It confirms a person-centered attachment, a phenomenon where an entity is emotionally or energetically tethered to a specific individual or group. The family is now faced with the sobering reality that they aren't just living in a haunted environment, they are carrying the haunting with them. The doors may be new and the walls freshly painted, but the guest in their kitchen is the same shadow that drove them away from their last home. They have discovered that you can leave a building, but you cannot leave behind a presence that has decided you are its anchor. So what do you think? Is there any way to break a bond that transcends physical boundaries? Or are some attachments simply permanent? I'll let you come up with your own conclusions. The next clip was captured in a home where the owner lives completely alone, but based on this footage, it looks like he might have a roommate he didn't account for. The man's son-in-law shared this video after checking the security feed from a day when the house was supposed to be entirely empty. What starts as a quiet afternoon quickly turns into a display of physical aggression that's pretty hard to debunk. Right off the bat, you hear this heavy, shuffling sound, almost like someone is dragging a piece of furniture across the floor. Then, without warning, the double closet doors slam shut with enough force to make you jump. Now, here is where it gets scientifically weird. The family points out 2 major red flags. First, those doors don't have handles on the inside, and the closet is so packed with a washer and dryer that there is physically no room for a person to be standing in there to pull them shut. But the real nope moment happens right after the slam. You can see a light flickering from the gap in the doors. According to the owner, that light hasn't worked in years and isn't even plugged into a power source anymore. We see a lot of ghost videos, but when you combine a physical slam with a dead light bulb coming back to life, you're moving out of the realm of drafty houses and into something much more intentional. It's as if the entity wanted to make sure its presence was felt, heard, and seen all at once. Is this a classic case of an entity using a dead electronic as a battery to manifest, or is the house itself just holding onto some aggressive energy? This next clip takes us to a hotel in the Lake District, where a solo traveler captured something that turned a peaceful getaway into a night of pure paranoia. While filming a TikTok in her room, she started noticing strange noises that didn't belong. If you listen closely, you can hear these distinct, disembodied whispers. One viewer even pointed out that it sounds like a voice saying she's already nervous, which, if true, is a whole new level of creepy. It wasn't just her imagination though. When she reviewed the footage, the voices were undeniably there, vibrating in the silence of her empty room.
Hello? Oh, fucking hell.
Hello? Hello?
Now, here's where it gets interesting. Once the video hit the internet, the comments section turned into an unofficial paranormal forum. Several people immediately recognized the layout and asked if she was staying at The Swan, a well-known hotel in the area. One user reported it was the most haunted night ever, and they didn't sleep a wink during their stay, while another guest confirmed they had an almost identical experience in a loft room at that same location. Feeling increasingly uneasy, she called down to reception, and they promised to send someone up to check on her. When she finally opens the door, expecting to see a staff member, she's met with a long, silent, and completely empty hallway. The sheer length of that corridor makes it almost impossible for someone to have ducked around a corner that fast. While a few skeptics in the comments suggested noisy heating pipes, the majority of viewers were just screaming for her to lock the door and stay inside. So, what do you think? Is this hotel truly holding on to spirits from the past that like to comment on their guest's state of mind? Or is it just a case of old plumbing and a hyper-aware traveler? In the following clip, we encounter a scenario that goes far beyond a typical residual haunting. When investigators assess a location, they don't just look for movement or sound. They pay very close attention to environmental and sensory changes. One of the most severe red flags you can experience in your home is olfactory. Specifically, the sudden, unexplained smell of sulfur or rotten eggs. In the paranormal world, that nasty smell usually isn't just bad plumbing. A lot of people believe it's the physical sign of something really dark and heavy entering our reality. When an entity like that steps into a room, it completely shifts the energy. Keep that in mind, and keep your eyes glued to the wall right behind the couch.
Oh, what the fuck? What the fuck is that? Dude. Baby, what took you so long to answer? Dude, the house smells like literally like rotten egg. Like, it literally smells like you forgot to take the trash out or something. Like, I don't know what the fuck is going on, but this shit, like, I'm literally feel like I'm about to puke. I was just taking a nap and the house smells disgusting. Yeah, I'll open the door. I don't know if that's gonna do much though. The door's open. I don't know. I need a fan or something. You need to get home and like air, like do something in here. Did you take the trash out? What the fuck, baby? The lights are fucking flickering now, dude. Baby, stop! What the fuck? Baby!
When an unseen force interacts with the physical world, the choice of what it manipulates tells you everything you need to know about its intentions. Knocking a cup off a table is a simple cry for attention, but deliberately targeting a symbol of faith and physically inverting it is a highly calculated act of mockery. Pulling off a manipulation like that requires a massive draw of raw energy, which perfectly explains the sudden electrical interference and flickering lights right before it happens. It serves a very specific, deeply sinister purpose. The entity isn't just trying to scare the occupants, it is launching a psychological attack designed to strip away their sense of spiritual protection and claim absolute dominance over the space. When things start smelling like decay and the symbols on your wall turn upside down, you aren't dealing with a restless ghost passing through. You are dealing with something deeply malevolent that is actively making itself at home. In the next clip, we see a perfectly normal family moment take a very strange turn. A mother and father are sitting on the floor, playing with their baby boy. The baby is laughing, and everything seems completely fine, but right in the middle of a giggle, he abruptly stops. The parents were actually so confused by his sudden change in behavior that they posted the video asking a genuine question. Did my son see a ghost or have a seizure? This naturally sparked a huge debate in the comments. While some people suggested it looked like a brief absent seizure, others pointed out an environmental anomaly. As you watch, pay very close attention to the lighting in the room right before the baby's demeanor shifts.
It's so cute.
While a medical explanation is always the most logical place to start, a lot of viewers argued against it based on the visual evidence. First, the physical reaction doesn't entirely fit. Even while his face is frozen, his arms are still subtly moving, and the freeze lasts for just a fraction of a second before he snaps right back to normal. As several people pointed out, absent seizures don't typically resolve that instantaneously, but the detail that really makes people lean toward a paranormal explanation is the lighting. Just as one viewer noticed, right before the baby locks his eyes on the empty space, the brightness of the camera feed inexplicably surges. A medical episode happening inside a child's brain does not cause the external lighting in a room to fluctuate. That kind of sudden light anomaly is often associated with energy shifting in a room. The parents don't know what happened to their boy, but what do you think? This next clip was filmed in an empty grocery store. You see there is a very specific, deeply unsettling feeling that comes with working the graveyard shift in a massive empty building. Grocery stores are designed to be packed with people, light, and noise. So when you strip all of that away at 3 a.m., it turns into a maze of dead quiet aisles and harsh fluorescent lights. It becomes the perfect, isolated playground for something that doesn't belong. For a while, the overnight stalker who filmed this had been feeling like he wasn't actually alone in the store. He kept catching quick glimpses of a figure in a white shirt slipping around corners or ducking behind shelves just out of his direct line of sight. It's easy to try and brush that off as simple sleep deprivation, but when he walked out of the back room on this particular night, the entity decided to stop hiding in the periphery and make a very physical, undeniable introduction.
Alright, at work, alone, middle of the night. Look at that one sign. Swinging. What is up with that? Nothing else is moving. The one sign right there. What's up with that?
Skeptics will immediately try to blame the HVAC system kicking on or a draft from a loading dock door. But basic physics completely ruins that argument. If that was air current, the other identical signs would at least be swaying too. But they are not. They're dead still. That isolated, aggressive movement is completely unnatural. And the fact that the sign is hanging way too high up for a living person to physically reach just adds to the nightmare. That isn't a draft. That is the exact same figure in the white shirt he's been seeing for weeks, finally stepping out into the open and showing him how much physical power it actually has. What would you do if that were you? In this next clip, we are dealing with a situation that feels straight out of a horror movie. We've all heard stories about a random electronic toy going off in the middle of the night, usually just because of a dying battery or a weird glitch. But what this creator captured going on in her bedroom completely defies logic. For a while, she kept waking up to the sound of a very specific melody coming from her bedside lamp. But the terrifying part is how the lamp behaves. It doesn't just play randomly, it waits until she is fully asleep, and the exact second she physically gets up or moves around to check on it, the music dead stops. That kind of reaction isn't a mechanical error, that shows awareness. It knows when she's awake and asleep. If you listen closely, the song playing is Auld Lang Syne, the classic tune everyone sings at midnight on New Year's Eve. Hearing that tinny, cheerful melody echoing in a pitch-black bedroom while you're trying to sleep is unsettling enough on its own. Naturally, the comment section was flooded with people trying to rationalize it, mostly claiming it's just the sound of a musical microchip dying on a low battery. But here is the massive problem with that theory. The creator explicitly confirmed that the lamp is completely unplugged from the wall, and it doesn't even take batteries. There is literally zero physical power source connected to this object. If a device has absolutely no electricity running to it, it cannot produce sound. Unless, of course, something unseen in that room is providing its own energy to make it play. So, what do you think? I'll leave you to be the judge. In this next clip, what should have been an exciting fresh start in a new house immediately turns into a nightmare. He has just moved in and is completely alone in the house. He's standing in a dark hallway when the lights start to glitch out and the sliding door at the very end of the hall begins to move.
I was moving into my new house. I was alone and this happened. Good luck to me.
Notice the specific way that door closes. It isn't a smooth, continuous glide caused by a slanted floor or a heavy draft. It has a distinct start and stop motion, exactly like a physical hand is gripping the edge and carefully pulling it shut. He bravely walks down the hall, slides the door open, and finds absolutely nothing inside. It's definitely not the kind of welcoming committee you want to deal with on your first day in a new house. You might try to rationalize that first event and just go to work, hoping it was a weird, isolated fluke. But the second half of the video destroys any chance of a logical explanation. He comes home from his shift to find that exact same bedroom door actively opening and closing on its own. He works up the courage again to push through it and see what is waiting for him inside.
I came home from work. Something seemed strange. My lights were on and something weird happened. WTF is that thing? Somebody get me out of here.
The door moving is creepy enough, but finding that vintage clown doll sitting dead center on his bed takes it to a completely different level of terrifying. Remember, he lives completely alone and absolutely did not put that doll there. In paranormal research, objects like old dolls are often viewed as trigger objects, items that can hold significant residual energy or even act as an anchor for an entity. Physically transporting an object like that and placing it directly on where he sleeps while he was out of the house is a massive escalation. It's a very clear, very sinister message from whatever is sharing that house with him. I was in your room and I am waiting for you. In this next clip, we see why setting up a security camera in your bedroom can sometimes give you a lot more than you bargained for. The person who filmed this was very clear in their caption. They made absolutely sure that the closet door with the mirror on it was securely shut and latched. Watch what happens to it. A latch door doesn't just pop open on its own because of a breeze or the house settling. It takes physical force to undo a latch and pull it open. But as creepy as that is, it's really just the warm-up. That same night, while the creator was actually in the room, fast asleep in bed out of the camera's view, their phone got a motion alert from the camera, and when they checked the footage the next day, they saw this. In the video, you can clearly see a distinct dark shadow moving across the wall and the door. The creator confirmed there was absolutely nothing moving inside or outside the house that could have cast a shadow like that. But the detail that really freaked them out is where the shadow ends up. Toward the end of the clip, the dark shape stops and just hovers right at the foot of the bed, lingering exactly where they were sleeping. It's one thing for an entity to mess with your closet doors while you're out of the room, but standing over you in the dark while you are completely vulnerable and asleep, that is a massive invasion of privacy and honestly, a great reason to pack your bags. What would you do if you experienced something like this? This next clip presents a very unsettling dynamic. When we see grainy baby monitor footage recorded at 3 a.m., we naturally brace ourselves for something terrifying. But what happens when the entity lurking in your child's nursery isn't there to scare them, but to protect them? The footage shows a baby awake and playing in his crib in the middle of the night. As he rocks backward, getting dangerously close to smacking the back of his head against the wooden rails, an unseen force intervenes. If you watch the baby's momentum, the physics simply don't make sense for a self-correction. As the mother pointed out in its post, he is a 23-pound toddler. A baby of that size and motor development cannot abruptly halt a backward fall and smoothly glide forward using just one hand. That movement was a clear, controlled, and gentle tug from an external source, pulling him safely away from the edge. What makes this even more fascinating and eerie is the established pattern. According to the family, this isn't an isolated incident. They regularly capture this kind of activity around the exact same time at night, and the presence behaves in a distinctly maternal way. It doesn't just catch him when he falls. It has also been documented carefully adjusting his blanket to keep him warm while he sleeps. In paranormal theory, this is often categorized as a guardian spirit, or perhaps a lingering familial energy. And while it is certainly comforting to know that the ghost in your house wants to keep your baby safe, it is still an incredibly tough reality to accept that an invisible entity is taking the night shift in your nursery. In the following clip, what starts as a heartwarming family gathering takes a deeply unsettling turn. The footage centers on an elderly woman bathed in the warm glow of candles as her family sings to her. It's a standard, grainy home video, but the atmosphere subtly shifts when you look past the festivities and focus on the open doorway in the background. As the song reaches its peak, a distinct, childlike shadow darts across the room. The movement is quick but deliberate, and the shape clearly resembles a little girl. Watch closely. The grandmother appears entirely unaware of the anomaly behind her, completely absorbed in the moment. Yet, the camera captures what the human eye easily missed in the chaotic joy of the celebration. What makes this particularly chilling is the context that often accompanies such manifestations in paranormal circles. Some viewers theorize that the shadow may be deeply connected to the grandmother's past. A common narrative attached to this footage suggests that the woman may have lost a young daughter many decades ago. If that is the case, could this be the residual energy of a child returning to celebrate her mother's milestone? Or perhaps more ominously, certain folklore dictates that the sudden appearance of a long-deceased loved one acts as a harbinger, a spectral sign that they are preparing to guide the elderly family member to the other side. Is this simply a trick of the lighting, a living relative passing by unnoticed, or a fleeting glimpse of an entity from beyond the veil? I'll let you come up with your own conclusions. In this next clip, we see exactly why working in a mortuary or a funeral home requires a profound level of mental fortitude and an inherent comfort with the concept of mortality. These facilities are designed to be final way stations for the deceased, places where families gather to release their heaviest, most agonizing emotions. Because of this intense concentration of grief and transition, paranormal researchers have long considered funeral homes to be highly active epicenters for the supernatural. Usually, this activity is thought to be residual, a sort of emotional echo permanently etched into the very foundations of the building. But what happens when that energy stops being a simple echo and begins to interact with the living? Recently, a mortuary worker began documenting her shifts after noticing a disturbing pattern of inexplicable disturbances, and her footage provides a terrifying look at an escalation that defies all logical explanation. The deeply unsettling series of events begins early one morning before the facility is officially open. The worker is alone, surrounded by the sterile, quiet atmosphere of the embalming rooms, quietly prepping for the arduous tasks ahead. Having felt a heavy, oppressive presence in the building during previous night shifts, she decides to keep her camera rolling. The silence of the mortuary is profound, but it doesn't take long for that quiet to be violently broken by an auditory anomaly. Take a look. Listening closely, the vocalization carries a highly peculiar tone. It sounds like a hollow, agonizing wail that almost borders on a mocking laugh. In the context of a funeral home, one might easily write this off as a trick of the acoustics or a draft whistling through the ventilation. However, the sheer volume and human-like cadence of the sound make it incredibly difficult to debunk. But as her documentation continues over the following days, it becomes terrifyingly clear that this presence is not just a passive recording of the past. It is fully aware of her, and it is growing bolder. In a subsequent recording, the worker is no longer alone. She is joined by her son, who frequently accompanies her to assist with the heavy lifting and late-night duties. The presence of a second witness completely shifts the dynamic, grounding the experience in absolute reality. Watch their immediate reaction as the physical environment begins to manipulate itself right in front of their eyes.
Are you always alone when you're there at night? So thankfully I'm not always alone. My son also comes to help me. He has been by my side for the last few years. He's gonna be 19 soon, but he is so respectful, and he also helps on removals, and he helps me dress the loved ones. That's what we just got done with now. Tonight we had a loved one that was in really good shape, very peaceful, and it didn't take us long. And it's to the point where I don't even have to tell him what to do. He is already seasoned enough to know what we need to do. He hands me the correct tools. You know, he's a really good help. And I'm so thankful that Was that you?
No.
Was that you?
No. Look at the video, wasn't me.
What was that?
I don't know.
Well, what'd you hear?
I don't know. I don't know.
Why is that always happening?
I don't know.
Okay, well, I'm just thankful that he's here. So, and we're done. So.
A heavy, solid door is caught moving entirely on its own, unprompted by any visible force. Mortuary and hospital-grade doors are notoriously weighty, deliberately designed to seal off specific rooms and prevent air circulation. A simple draft, or the natural settling of an old building, simply does not possess the kinetic energy required to unlatch and move a door of that size. The genuine visceral shock on her son's face is perhaps the most compelling piece of evidence here. His fight or flight response is triggered instantly. This leap from an auditory phenomenon to a physical manipulation strongly suggests the anomaly has gathered enough energy to interact with our three-dimensional space. From this point forward, the tension within the facility compounds at a rapid pace, and the entity begins to localize its activity. While standing in the corridor, the mother and son are suddenly frozen by the sound of aggressive, inexplicable shouting originating from the facility's chapel.
Hey you guys, we haven't made a video in a little while, so I just wanted to come on and kind of refresh everybody with just a little mortician tip here. I don't know if everybody's aware. So when you bring in the clothing to the funeral home, yes, you want your loved one dressed in something either they loved, or say they were in the military and they have, you know, military getup that they want on, their favorite shirt, their favorite pants, pajamas even, just so everyone's aware. I think that this is something people don't tend to think about. But in our world, when families bring us clothing, sometimes they're not aware that in order for the clothing to really fit properly, say it's too big, too small, we have to cut the back of the clothing in order to place it on your loved one. So sometimes if families request the favorite shirt back, or, you know, their favorite set of whatever they have on, it will be cut. It's very rare, unless the clothing is perfectly fitted to that person, that the director won't have to cut it. I've worked in several funeral homes where they don't cut it, and it... Is anybody here?
No, what is here?
Who's here?
Time to go.
What?
Time to go.
We're the only ones here. I have to go look.
There's always been your video.
Okay, let's go. We're going.
The chapel is the emotional core of any funeral home, the exact room where the living confront their final goodbyes. The voices captured here are not faint whispers caught on a sensitive audio recorder. They are loud, confrontational shouts echoing from a completely empty room. The aggression in the anomaly is so palpable that her son immediately states they need to leave, a primal instinct that the mother quickly and wisely agrees with. Fear is a natural response, and when an unseen entity begins raising its voice in an empty building, retreating is often the safest protocol. However, the most terrifying escalation occurs on an entirely separate day, proving that the entity is not a fleeting visitor, but a permanent resident. While filming in the facility, another loud, jarring noise emanates from the chapel doors. Rather than retreating this time, the mother and son decide to cautiously approach the room to investigate the source. But whatever is dwelling in that chapel seemingly senses their approach and pushes back with a massive display of power.
So we're here working. We were hearing some noises in the chapel, so we actually decided to come in the chapel and make this informative video to see if we could catch any of the noises. So I'm gonna explain what this is on today's mortuary information video. So there are times where we get loved ones who are donors. They're bone donors. They take skin, they take what they can for things that anybody may need, right? So when they come to us, we have to prepare them properly, and sometimes there are issues where there can be leakage. So in order to prevent the leakage and keep it contained, the deceased would go in one of these, which is called a unional. A unional contains all of the fluid and contains all the fluid, and it makes sure that while your loved one is being presented in the visitation, we don't have any issues with anything, you know. Okay, let's go see. Because now I'm in the chapel and I'm not. Oh my god.
Did the lights go
Dude,
off
the
on
lights
you?
went off right when that happened.
You wanna go?
It's always when we're recording. It never fails.
It's the camera.
Anyways.
Just as they step forward to uncover the source of the disturbance, the lights in the corridor are completely severed, plunging them into absolute darkness. This sudden blackout is deeply baffling and crosses a dangerous line. In paranormal theory, it is widely believed that spirits and entities require vast amounts of ambient energy to manifest physically or audibly. They will often drain batteries, drop the ambient temperature, or siphon power directly from a building's electrical grid. The precise timing of this blackout suggests an intelligent entity capable of manipulating the environment, either draining the power to gather strength for a larger manifestation or intentionally plunging the room into darkness to assert dominance and incite terror. It is a calculated, psychological strike against the witnesses. Even after this intense, confrontational encounter, the presence refuses to back down, continually toying with the worker and her environment. In a final piece of footage, the mortuary worker is attempting to film a standard update, speaking calmly to the camera. Yet, the entity reminds her exactly who is in control of the space. The lighting above her begins to pulse and flicker erratically. To prove there is no logical interference, she immediately pans the camera to the wall, revealing a completely empty hallway and confirming that no one is anywhere near the light switch.
Everyone, it's 11:45 p.m. and I'm here at the funeral home, and I wanted to make a video to kind of explain. A lot of people aren't aware or are confused as to why funeral directors are at the funeral home at 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the morning. So death can occur at any time, morning, afternoon, evening, and funeral directors have to be ready to go at any time. So, you know, if a funeral director gets a call, they'll make that removal at the place of death, bring the loved one to the funeral home, and if they are going to be embalmed, that embalming is usually done at that time. So funeral directors can be at the funeral home all night. If they are getting multiple calls while they're embalming, they have to stop and go and come and finish and go and come and stop and all that stuff. So sometimes funeral directors are at the funeral home all night, and then they have to work in the office the next morning, meeting with families, taking out services. It can get really exhausting, but for me tonight, I am here, or I just got finished dressing a loved one for their services tomorrow. And I like to come in the night because there's no one here. It's peaceful, it's quiet. I can take my time and pay 100% full attention to that loved one without worrying, you know, oh, I have to go answer the phone, or I have to leave on a call. I can just actually come and take my time and concentrate. So I do like coming in the night because of that. And okay, that was weird. I don't like that. The light switch is right there. The light just flickered. And I'm gonna cut this video short because that is cue for it's my time to go.
The intelligence behind these combined occurrences is highly disturbing. We are looking at a clear, methodical escalation. What began as a distant, mournful cry evolved into the physical manipulation of heavy doors, aggressive vocalizations, and the deliberate, targeted manipulation of the building's electrical system. The facility appears to be hosting something that absolutely demands to be acknowledged. Is this simply the collected, heavy energy of 1,000 grieving families manifesting physically in the architecture, or has a specific, highly intelligent entity refused to cross over, trapping itself forever between the chapel and the embalming room? I'll leave you to be the judge. In this next clip, a worker at what appears to be a large cemetery or mortuary complex captures a series of events that suggest he is far from alone during his night shift. According to the man recording, he began documenting the area after noticing small objects being toyed with by an unseen force. Though he speaks in Spanish, the terror in his voice is universal as he repeatedly asks, "Who is there?" The footage begins with a focus on a simple water bottle resting on a flat stone ledge. Take a look.
¿Vieron la botella? ¿Vieron la botella? ¿La vieron? Si estás aquí, manifiéstate. Escucho algo. Hola. Mira, se cayó. Al mismo tiempo, amigos, mira alguien ahí al fondo. Buenas noches. ¡Ay, Dios! No. ¿Qué es eso? Hola. ¿Quién eres? Ven. ¿Hay alguien aquí? ¿Hay alguien aquí? Hola?
The initial movement of the water bottle is unsettling. It doesn't slide as if pushed by a localized draft, but rather shifts with a deliberate jerky motion that suggests a physical grip. As the worker ventures deeper into the narrow corridors between the tombs, the activity becomes more aggressive. A large plastic container is caught on camera falling and tumbling across his path, appearing as though it were violently thrown from the dark recesses of the complex. The anomaly only deepens when the camera pans toward the back of the graveyard, briefly catching a glimpse of a pale, stationary figure standing over a grave in the distance. The most baffling part of this encounter, however, involves the religious iconography present at the site. Among the various items being manipulated, the large cross mounted atop one of the tombs appears to shift and tilt on its own. In paranormal research, the physical movement of heavy, fixed objects, especially those of a religious nature, is often categorized as high-energy poltergeist activity. It suggests an entity capable of significant kinetic output, or perhaps a residual energy that has become strong enough to influence the physical world. If you were alone in a graveyard and witnessed a cross-shifting of its own accord, would you stay to see what manifested next, or would you find a new line of work? In the following clip, we're looking at a discovery that feels like the opening scene of a Hollywood horror movie, but for this hiker, the terror was all too real. This woman was trekking deep into a dense, isolated patch of woods when she stumbled upon a discarded, vintage-style camcorder lying in the dirt. And the most unsettling part? It was reportedly smeared with what looked like dried blood. Most people would have left it right there, but curiosity eventually got the better of her. She decided to bring it home and play back the footage to see what the previous owner had captured before they presumably abandoned the device in a hurry. What she found on the tape wasn't just a home movie, it was a record of something that was never supposed to be seen. As the camera pans across the thick, tangled tree line, you can see a tall, dark, human-shaped silhouette peeking out from behind a massive trunk. It's only visible for a split second, but the moment the lens locks onto it, the figure retreats into the shadows with a fluid, almost mechanical speed that no human could replicate. In paranormal circles, this is often labeled as a watcher, an entity that acts as a territorial spirit, guarding a specific location. The woman probably walked away thinking that the woods were the anchor, and that as long as she stayed off that particular trail and never went back, she'd be in the clear. She likely figured the camera was just a creepy souvenir of a place she'd never visit again. But boy, was she wrong. It turns out that when you bring a haunted object into your home, you aren't just bringing back a story, you're effectively inviting a guest that doesn't need a second invitation to stay. Back within the supposed safety of her own four walls, the reality of what she found in those woods began to settle in with a heavy, suffocating weight. She began to feel a relentless, aggressive energy that seemed determined to make its presence known at all hours of the night. It started with small things, items being slightly out of place, a door left ajar, but it quickly escalated into a full-on auditory assault. The footage she began recording in her own apartment shows a woman who is a shell of her former self, jumping at every creak of the floorboards.
It's the middle of the night and I just got woke up again. It's coming for me. It's in my house. The noises are coming from the kitchen. Listen. That's the noise that wakes me up every night. It gets me. It wakes me up in my dreams. It wakes me up from my sleep. I have to catch it on camera.
We often focus on the what of a haunting, the bangs, the slams, and the shadows, but we rarely see the systematic breakdown of a person's sense of security. Several viewers in the comments section pointed out a chilling theory that changes the entire context of this video. These entities don't just cause fear, they feed off it. They act like an emotional battery, using the adrenaline and the high-frequency panic of their host to manifest even more physical disturbances. The more she records, and the more terrified she becomes, the stronger the entity seems to get. It's a vicious cycle where the victim's own survival instincts are being weaponized against them. As the days drag on, the activity shifts from physical disturbances to something much more cruel and calculated. She's at her absolute breaking point, visibly exhausted from a total lack of sleep and the growing realization that she is being hunted within her own walls. But it's no longer just about things moving in the dark. Now, the entity is starting to speak back, and it's choosing the voices she trusts most. She reports hearing her sister and even her mother calling out her name from the other rooms, a chilling development considering she lives completely alone and her family is literally hundreds of miles away on the other side of the country.
It's getting worse, and I haven't been able to tell anyone or go anywhere because I don't have anywhere to go, and I don't have anyone who's believing me. At first, it was my sister, but now I hear my mom, and she doesn't live here. She lives on the other side of the country, and I just called her, and she's in her own home. She's not here right now. So who is that? I've gone through the whole entire apartment. There is no one else here but me. No one else.
If you listen closely to the audio while she's talking to the camera, there's a faint, rhythmic hello, hello, whispering from somewhere deep in the house beneath the sound of her own voice. By weaponizing her own family's voices, the entity is conducting a masterclass in emotional warfare. It knows that even in a state of terror, a human will instinctively move toward the sound of a loved one. At this point, she's not just fighting a haunting anymore, she's fighting for her own sanity. In a desperate attempt to find even a moment of peace, she finally fled the apartment. She jumped in her car and drove, hoping that the distance between her and that trail in the woods would finally mean something. But as she pulled into her apartment's public parking garage, she realized the distance didn't matter.
I was just walking out of my apartment, and look. You see that? You see that shadow? It's following me.
If you look at the shadow cast against the concrete wall behind the red car, you can see a tall, distorted figure that perfectly matches the silhouette from the blood-smeared camcorder she found in the woods. This confirms the worst-case scenario in any paranormal investigation, a person-centered attachment. The entity isn't tied to the woods, and it's not even tied to the camcorder anymore. It is tied to her. It has moved from being a watcher in the trees to a stalker in her shadow. In the final piece of evidence, we see her trying to navigate the most mundane parts of her day, but the sounds behind her are becoming impossible to ignore. She's just trying to head down the stairs of a parking structure, but every step she takes is met with a heavy, rhythmic echo that isn't her own. You can see the exhaustion in her hands as the camera shakes. She is a woman who has run out of places to hide.
I was just coming downstairs, and I keep hearing it. Sounds like it's always like one step behind me. Listen. Listen. Did you hear that? Did you hear that?
According to paranormal experts, what we might be seeing here is a demonic attachment or a high-level shadow entity. Unlike a typical residual ghost that repeats the same actions over and over, these entities are predatory and intelligent. They use an initial point of curiosity, like picking up a discarded camera, as a legal invitation to latch onto a person's energetic field. Once that bond is formed, it's incredibly difficult to break because the entity is no longer powered by the object. It's powered by the victim's recognition of its presence. In a final, desperate attempt To end the nightmare, she reportedly returned to the woods and left the blood-smeared camcorder exactly where she found it, hoping that returning the anchor would keep the entity there. But the activity hasn't stopped. Whatever followed her out of those trees has no intention of going back to the dirt. It has a new home now. So what do you think? Is there any way to break a bond that transcends physical boundaries? Or are some attachments simply permanent? And more importantly, what would you do if you were in her shoes? This next clip takes us to a living room where a group of friends or siblings are gathered to record a sweet, seemingly innocent video. They're holding heart-shaped balloons and singing happy birthday in German, completely unaware that the camera is capturing a lot more than just their celebration. The lighting is warm, the mood is light, and it looks like a typical happy moment you'd send to a family member. But if you keep your eyes on the mirror hanging on the wall to the left, this wholesome video quickly turns into something straight out of a nightmare.
1, 2, 3, 4. Zum Geburtstag viel Glück. Zum Geburtstag viel Glück. Zum Geburtstag alles Gute. Zum Geburtstag viel Glück. Alles Liebe zum Geburtstag, Mama.
As the song comes to an end and the group starts laughing and popping their balloons, pay close attention to the reflection in that oval mirror. For just a split second, a pale, almost translucent figure with what looks like wings glides past the glass. It moves with a smooth, unnatural glide, completely out of sync with the chaotic energy of the room. The moment the figure passes out of frame, the mirror detaches from the wall and crashes to the ground, taking the room from a state of celebration to a state of absolute shock. It's as if whatever was watching them from the reflection decided it was done being ignored. So, what do you think? Was this a guardian angel making a very dramatic entrance for a birthday? Or is it a case of an unseen entity using the mirror as a portal before violently closing the door behind it? I'll leave you to come up with your own conclusions.